I'm Rick Peckham, and this is Coffee Talk.
Perfect. Hi,
Yeah.
everyone. I'm Kim Perlak. I'm the chair of the guitar department, and welcome to another coffee talk. As usual, we have with us Cheryl Bailey, assistant chair. Hey, Cheryl. Good morning.
Hey, everybody, I have water, sorry.
Ooh,
Hmm.
that's very hydrating at the midterm of the
Hope it's
semester.
caffeinated. Is there caffeine in there? No.
We've got Ian Steed, our senior coordinator. Hey, Ian.
Hey all.
Okay. And our special guest today is Professor Rick Peckham, who was assistant chair for many, many years and is an author, jazz guitarist, and just longtime pedagogue here at Berkeley. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, but I was looking. I dug it out because I wondered when I got here in '86, and then I was in the ear training department for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's 1986. Anyway, yeah, and in ear training, and for 3 years, and then 3 years in a department called Performance Studies, which has been folded into the ensemble area since then. And then for 21 years, I was assistant chair of the department, and that was until 2013. So now I'm happily teaching away for 8 years as a faculty member in the guitar department. So yeah, that's basically where I'm coming from.
That's fantastic. And, in addition to all of that, I think there are a number of people who are listening who will recognize your voice, and a number of people who are watching who will recognize you right away because you have been to many different countries. And that's an understatement for Berkeley on the Road, for auditions. I believe you also directed the Puerto Rico program.
Well, artistic, well, director, I was, yeah, head hot and tot there. I mean, there were other people doing all the administrative stuff, but yeah, they did that. Yeah, and Cheryl was down there at the same time a couple times when I was there.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so many students around the world have studied with you. And then also, as I briefly mentioned, you have a number of books with Berkeley Press, and you're a Berkeley Online instructor as well.
It's funny that you mentioned that about my voice too, because Scott McCormick, whom I worked with in the ear training department, we came up with a musicianship book years ago, and there was a cassette, and there's a big concert at the end. And a lot of people recognize my voice because I was the one that did the introductions. They would do a huge concert where people would sing solfege over pop songs, and it'd be like, and so I'd say, number 14, James Brown, got the feeling. And we would play that during the concert, and I've run into people on the faculty that say, yeah, yeah, we hear your voice every year at this concert. Anyway, yeah, so you never know. You have to be careful when that record button is pressed.
That's really true. Well, you've got a great voice for it. You've got a great voice for it.
Yeah, it's well, I get away with it. I got away with it for that one, yeah. But it's yeah, it's James Brown has been announced better by other people, I have to admit.
Well, there's a lot of things we want to talk about your playing and about your teaching approach. But first, we have to know, what are you drinking in terms of coffee? Are you a coffee drinker, and how do you take it?
I am. That's wherever I go, and including at home. It's well, it's changed over the years. It's like I need coffee and Wi-Fi. Those are the two things. Sometimes it's Wi-Fi and coffee, but yeah. So I have a Nespresso, not as fancy as the one in the office, but a classic Nespresso. And this is a Nespresso cappuccino. I think is the no. It's arpeggio. Appropriately enough, is the flavor, and it is the earlier and just black. That's it. Black, just caffeine and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's what I do pretty much all day.
It's funny because we've noticed unintentionally that um, having this segment is very telling because often people's coffee choice reflects something about their guitar playing choices, and you are very well known in your teaching for your approach to chords and arpeggios. So I think that is very telling.
That's right. It lines up. It's a cosmic, yeah, convenience. That's what I would say. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the fundamental, like the black coffee being the fundamental. Yeah.
That's right. You don't want to leave the triads out. You're not going to argue to leave the triads out, are you? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that's like coffee in any seventh chord. That's for sure.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
So, Rick, as you mentioned, you had a number of different first days at Berkeley when
Hmm.
you first came and then going into different departments. When you think back over them, are there is there a moment or moments that stand out about your first days at Berkeley, like what your impressions were in the different areas?
That's a fun thing to think about. Actually, the very first day at Berkeley, I mean, I was down at North Texas State, and now it's the University of North Texas, and I was beginning work on a doctorate down there, but I have yet to complete that. Um, and I don't know if that'll ever happen. There's so many other things to do. But one of my buddies and roommates down there was Bruce Saunders. We were down there together. Anyway, I was hired at Berkeley. They flew me up for an interview. And at the time in 1986, around that time, one thing everybody knew is nobody got hired at Berkeley unless you were a Berkeley graduate. But the pendulum never swings to the middle, and it had gone the other way, and they were hiring people that went elsewhere. It went kind of crazy the other direction for a while, and I was flown up and interviewed in the ensemble department, which I was really psyched about, and the ear training department, which I had survived ear training, but I was hired in the ear training department. So I came up, and my first day at Berkeley, I got dressed in a suit. I put on a tie. I came in, and it was there. I figured 8:30 would be a good time because classes started at 9 usually, and I didn't have any classes on that day. I mean, I figured if you're a faculty member, you're just here all the time. That's what you would do. So my first day was that. But then my first classes, which were the next day, I had a couple of offspring of the rich and famous Jason Nesmith, son of Mike Nesmith, was in my ear training class, and Harper Simon, the son of Paul Simon, was in there. It was right in the same class. So I was amazed at sort of the breadth of the draw of people at Berkeley. And then that first day, I sort of got a introduction on that. I had lots of charts and things that I had transcribed, and it was sort of a natural thing for me to get involved with it. But there were a lot of things I had to learn and get control of to act like they weren't a big deal to all of my students. So, just to make it figure out the best way to kind of get those skills into the students' toolkit, and that's what I've been doing basically ever since.
Hmm. I have a question about your teaching at that particular time. And I'm wondering, as a jazz guitarist, you're coming out of an incredibly well known program, a very high level competitive program. And I'm guessing that a lot of your time was spent on the guitar playing. And I'm wondering what that experience lent to you as you became an ear training teacher. How did you draw on your experience as a jazz musician, as a player, when you taught ear training?
That's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, the I think what I really needed to do is put my energy into learning the movable dough system and all the different chromatics and all of that. There were a lot of things that all the students needed to know that I really had to brush up on. But as far as having the capacity to write out charts and things, I was always more. Well, when I met Bruce Saunders, he had a huge stack. I mean, a stack of manuscript books, not a stack of manuscripts, but of books where he had transcribed all of this stuff. Charlie Parker, Ed Bickert, people I had never heard of before. He was on top of that, so he nailed all of the transcriptions of solos, and I had worked on some of that as well. My main thing was to work. I sort of had a stack of tunes. I was always looking for songs that were not in the typical fake books that everybody used, and just try to figure out those things to try to get a different angle on things because I didn't want to be springing tunes on people that they already knew, and I wanted them to be great tunes. And that's basically what I've been doing ever since, rather than just having obvious go-to things. That's what I've done in my teaching. Because again, back to my work with Scott McCormick in the ear training department at the beginning, he was a great person to work with. He retired several years from Berkeley, but he had studied at the Franz Liszt Academy in Budapest, Hungary, and he was just a great teacher. And the Liszt Academy was very involved with the Kodai approach to ear training, and so really just so much respect for the idea of pedagogy and teaching and how to do it, and to teach anything properly. It's not just remembering how you learn something. It's knowing 20 different ways of explaining what you're doing, so that just in the same way, if I said, oh, you're having trouble with your eyesight, here, just take these glasses, you would pitch over. I guarantee you. I don't know what's going on in my glasses, but I'm able to see through them. But you know what I mean? It's different for each person. You've got to find a different way to get in there. So but to me, and when I was at North Texas, I had worked as a graduate teaching fellow down there, and I had experience teaching and really basically thinking on my feet, which has served me throughout my life, and making it so that I was teaching. Well, there was a great teacher down there, Rich Madison, who's no longer living, but he would call me up in the morning and said, Rick, I'm not feeling tops today. You got to take all my classes. So here I was as a grad assistant, taking over all of this master professor from around the world, all of his classes. And I went in and I did it. I just was, how did I do it? I scrambled and got it done. I figured out what I could do to capture the interest of the people that were in the room. And, I knew I wasn't so great necessarily, but, Thelonious Monk and Duke Ellington and the master musicians, Joe Henderson, the master musicians that I admired were great. So I would just work to get them closer to those people. And when I came to Berkeley, I was kind of surprised because I had seen all the materials about it. I thought all the jazz stuff that I had learned, that was just completely passé and not applicable, because everything was rock, pop, and again, I'm talking about 1986, with the materials that I had seen. So I was scrambling to find things that were in the rock and rhythm and blues area and all of that, to make it so that I was conversant with that. When I landed up here, I could see that there was this was a rich, fertile ground for teaching and helping people in the area of jazz. But I've never had problems with working with people in any style. Again, the idea is to get closer to what the quality is. I mean, to me, it's like a triangular thing. I don't know if I could do this with my camera here, but it's like a triangle. I mean, to me, there's the teacher is there, and the student is here, and the music is here. And our job as teachers is to make this connection between the music and the student. It's not to make the connection between the student and the teacher necessarily, or to prove to the audience there how close the teacher is to music, but to help connect the student to the music. And that's my master's from North Texas is in music education, and I could see the value of looking at things that way. I will also say, when I was down there, one thing I was sure of is I wasn't going to be a teacher. I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to play. I was going to play, but I kept finding, the world kept telling me that I was able to teach, and I found challenges with it. I found people that I admired that were great teachers and great players. So I saw that the two things could come together. So I was really excited about trying to get that happening. And again, that's another thing I've been trying to do since I stumbled onto the concept.
I feel like listening to you talk about it that way, it's very clear to me that you have brought that all through your different career paths at Berkeley. You definitely brought that to your time as the assistant chair. in that sense that you were learning how to make things work. You were learning how to make things work for the students. You were thinking on your feet. You approached teaching and administration, it seems like, the way you approach playing the guitar. Like, learn as much about it as you can, learn how you can adapt to different things you don't see coming, be creative with it, find some fun with it, connect with people through that. And if you fast forward to when I came in 2013, in your
Mhm.
first year back on the faculty, I remember one day I was sitting at the table and I must have looked overwhelmed, like that table in our office. And you came up to me and you said, you don't have to know how to do everything because we have someone for that. You can,
Uh-huh.
we have all these experts. You can really figure out what you want to do, what you want to work on here. And you were showing us all that because at that time you had wanted to get really into like this Jerry Reed, Chet Atkins kind of playing.
Yeah.
And not only had taken off as a student in that playing from one of our faculty, Guy Van Duzer, who you did bring into the faculty, which was beautiful for everyone. But then you were also exploring, like, how do I teach this? How do I play with that ensemble? Like, what could we do? They were doing transcriptions, they were touring, that was a really big deal ensemble, and it just showed me that, wow, when you come here, you can learn as an artist and make that connection to being a faculty member and to being an administrative leader at the college. Was that something that you knew right away when you became assistant chair, or did that develop over time, that awareness that the chair position for assistant chair was also a creative position?
Well, when I first got to Berkeley, people were hired, and I mean, people that were here. It was really it was a different world. The music business was a different world, and actually, in 1985, Berkeley had, let's say, redefined itself with the structure, and contracts and all that sort of stuff. And faculty weren't sure whether they wanted teaching jobs or not. They wanted to perform. There were a lot of, the six-nighters and things, touring opportunities that were going on. So it was a much more liquid sort of thing. But as I spent time working with Larry as assistant chair, working with Larry as the chair, um, we saw how important it was with the hiring of hiring the right people, and really working to decide whether somebody was going to be a great person to work here or not. I mean, for example, if a potential faculty member was talking about what he or she did all the time and never mentioned anything that they'd done with students, it just sort of set off some, um, you know, uh, well, some red flags as far as whether it would work. I mean, to me, it's always been looking for people that can play well and have great communication skills, and have the capacity to express to the student that they care whether they get it or not, whether the student gets it or not. And those are sort of the three things that we always looked for, I think, or I was looking for, and that I had learned from the great people I had worked with. I mean, there just was sort of a moment when I was practicing, when I was doing something for some people that I worked with at North Texas, like Jack Peterson, who also he was the guy that established the guitar department at Berkeley even before William Levitt was here. And just sort of the quality and approach that they had to teaching, and that there was it's kind of like an artistic empathy sort of thing, where there is where you're working to get better, I'm working to get better, we're learning more about the music that we love. This is fantastic. And to me, that is something that I caught wisps of that from Jack Peterson and Rich Madison and Dan Hurley down in Texas, and and other great teachers I'd worked with. It's just sort of like a common flow where we're all kind of working together to get where we want to go, rather than this sort of thing where it's just sort of top down, where another distortion of that triangle sort of thing is, I'm the teacher that knows everything. You will only learn what I want you to know, and that's it. And the student is down here, sort of a target for all that stuff. To me, the thing is, what do you want to know about? How can I help you to do it? It's almost like a great producer in a recording. A great producer will help you get what you want if you know what you want. A great producer will help you with the things you're having trouble with to get it together. And actually, in the end, if you don't know what you want or how to get it, the producer will lead you through it and basically do it for you, so you see how it goes, so you can do it yourself. So I've found that that kind of approach works very well with teaching any style of music too. You know, like, well, just have you ever written out anything like this in this style? Oh, you haven't? Okay, well, let's do this together. All right, yeah, this bar, you want to put a double bar there. Emphasize the double bars when you're playing the way you hear it on this recording. Let's form as the invisible language of musicians. What are the invisible rules that are the always and nevers of the style? Each style I find that we run across has a set of always and nevers. And with running into Guy Van Duser while I was interested in working on the finger style, he was he totally knew all the always and nevers that he had learned from Chet Atkins, and working not with people that had heard Chet Atkins, but actually working with and for Chet Atkins. He did arrangements. Chet Atkins was going to do. He needed to play the wedding march or something, or and I think that's what it was. And he asked a guy to make a recording. Guy made a recording of it and sent the cassette to Chet Atkins, and that was it. There was no notation or anyway. Things that Guy invented on the guitar, he sent to the person a lot of people think is the greatest guitarist ever. So that it was it's amazing. So the things that he would say, when I always love it when I'm working with a great artist or somebody that I'm working alongside, to find out, oh yeah, you always do that. Oh no, you'd never do that. And those always and nevers a lot of times don't make their way into the books or the videos or anything. It's and it is gold. This is it. It's a miracle moment when you know you are not wasting your time talking to that person. Mhm.
I really love this, and I love the way you're talking. There isn't a separation between any of the roles that you've had. You
Mhm.
have a philosophy of teaching, and I think if as people have been looking back in these conversations, when they think of you and Larry and some of the big things that you did, you shaped the faculty by bringing a lot of people in. Most of the people who we think of, a lot of them came. Their first memory is Rick gave me a call, or I talked to Rick, or I got an email from Rick, or mostly a phone call. And I think what you described, the way you were, how you were looking for people and what you were looking for, maybe that answers the question a lot of people have when they look at the faculty at Berkeley, where they say, wow, you have so many guitar players and there isn't a weird vibe there. There seems to be a really nice vibe of community. Everybody seems to like each other and respect each other. In fact, when people listen to Coffee Talk, one of the comments we get is like, wow, you all work together really well. Like, you clearly like each other. And I think that is a testament to the way that the two of you saw the process, like what your goal was. And then the other big thing I think goes hand in hand with that, which is it was right around the time that you came that you and Larry and Mick and other faculty reframed the proficiency materials to say, like, okay, if our goal is to create this community in which we're all in this together moving forward, what are the fundamental skills in the curriculum we need to make sure we focus on? And what have we been doing that maybe isn't as helpful to students as what could move forward? And these are things, as Larry and you and I and Cheryl have reviewed them in the last couple of years. They really stand up. They're things. These philosophies have really become kind of the signature of the department. I think all based in that idea of learning and being creative, and putting the students and our learning together with them at the center of what you did all those years.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, there is a kindred spirit kind of. And when I think about it, I mean, it's also back to whenever I've felt kind of down or frustrated. I mean, there are two things that are consistent. the things that cheer me up, and it's the music that we're working with and the students that we're working with. I mean, it's those are both sort of pure. Every fall, the level of energy brought in by the entering class, with the people. I mean, they've worked so hard to walk through those doors, and it's very frustrating now with the setup with COVID and all that. But they've worked so hard to get here, and they are so interested in everything, and that is just sort of it's like an infusion, like a lifeblood for the place, and that it's a larger group of students from a larger cross section of the world. It just is amazing. I mean, this is just like a nuclear power plant of inspiration and musical energy. I mean, it just is a powerhouse as far as that goes, and the energy comes through the students. It's great to have great faculty. It's great to have great facilities, and Berkeley has that. That's for sure. But the number one thing and the number one asset of a Berkeley education, I would say, is access to others in the group of students. You are whenever you hear people that have been mega successful from Berkeley, and even when they sit down for an interview and they're talking about it, how did this start for you? You can almost see it dawning on the person at that point. Oh yeah, it was in Berkeley. Hearing John Schofield talk about, yeah, I used to play with Joey Barron, or I knew Joe Lovano there. We were in different practice rooms, but there are just so many other great musicians as well. I mean, like when Esperanza Spalding was here. I mean, I did auditions. We were in Seattle, and Jim Odgren and I were doing auditions, and here was this amazing bassist. And imagine having her sitting next to you in your ear training class or whatever in the first semester. It's just, or just to see all the things that blossom from that. And I don't mean to just pick on a couple of names. There are just so many, but it's it is. That I think is sort of the secret sauce of Berkeley, is just letting the music do it. I mean, another one of my sawhorses that I use, that I talk about with my fingers up, is the thing about Berkeley. The number one thing is you play it first. You play it first. What are you interested in? Start playing it. You play it first. Then you find out what's involved with it theoretically. So it's not at first, it's just like in the world. First came the music, then came the theory. And then you find ways to adapt what you've learned theoretically and through the playing into different styles and context, into different corners of a particular style, or even going wildly to a different style and seeing that actually this concept, this will work. This will work in country music. It works in funk. It works in R&B. It works in hard rock, anything, as well as jazz. So that sort of thing, I think, so often when I've had the opportunity to travel, and you all know about it too, um, students around the world, or potential students, are so amazed at how sharing you are with what you're doing, and how you're in there just working to help them, to get them doing it, rather than having some. I mean, it almost seems like in the educational world, there's a bit of there's a wall there. There's a kind of hazing that goes on between the teacher and the student, and there's none of that at Berkeley that I've ever seen. I mean, certainly it's a competitive atmosphere, and I'm sure it's not the easiest place in the world for all the students to be all the time. When they see people that are in a different dimension, on level wise, than where they've been. But Berkeley has always been a place that has also provided stair steps to make it so that, rather than, well, sorry, you just don't have it. It's like, well, no, let's talk about the triads. Let's do inversions of triads. Let's talk about the scale. Let's do the scale in thirds. Let's move it around, so that there are things that are building up, rather than, you've either got it or you don't. Berkeley has never believed that. That's what I think is one of the strongest things about the place, is just the kind of the respect for someone that wants to know, someone who's inspired and wants to get better. It's if you have a student that's inspired, I mean, I think of a long parade of students. One is Brooks Robertson, who came here as at a very high level, and actually I took online lessons with him before he was at Berkeley. I met him at the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society convention that I went to. I think it was in 2015. I think, um, and he has he was in the Jerry Reed Chet Atkins group that I directed. I think he was in it 6 times or 7 times, and and since then he has left and is very successful doing lots of things, of course, online, as everybody's online, but he does great things on Facebook, and he's worked with True Fire, continued to work with them. He also found ways to contact Jerry Reed's estate, and has legal transcriptions that you can purchase of. He found 16 Stars, I think, is the name of the company. Amazingly industrious that he had to just weed his way through all of that kind of music business stuff, and he makes videos. You can get the charts that go with it. He's imparting this music to the world in a very pure way, which is what I wanted to do. I mean, to me, I've from the very beginning, I've played in. I was playing in a prog rock band when I was in Ohio a long time ago. We were trying to do a Genesis song, I think that's what it was, and I stopped the band. I said, I don't think that's right there, and the organ player said, well, we're not doing what they're doing. This is an arrangement. So, that was my introduction to the idea that there's a big difference between outside and lost. Anyway, so it's it's not the same thing. So the idea of building a strong foundation, find out who the greatest people are, make it so that you can do it the way they're doing it, and then again, another 3-finger thing: imitate, assimilate, innovate. You take it so that you're able to do it the way the great person did it, the model did it, and you don't have to think about it that much. You're sort of getting the idea. Oh, here's something that original person would have never thought of in a million years, and there you are doing it. Built on that, standing on the shoulders of giants. That's the idea.
Yeah, and about Brooks, it's so not surprising to me knowing him that he connected with you, because I think he has a very similar outlook on learning and being a professional, and maybe in some ways you were like-minded, and then I think he picked up on some influence from you, in the sense that Brooks was a professional player, and then came to Berkeley and came in the office and said, okay, listen, here are things I've always wanted to be able to do that are my gaps.
Yep.
And I want to be a better reader, I want to learn to improvise, I want to learn to write, and here's what I do well, and I want to keep developing it, and here are things that this is my chance to sort of go back to the beginning, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. And I think that's a great thing just to mention again, that this is something that he did as a young professional, and then this is something that you did, and really all the faculty are doing, but I think very powerfully he found you, and you've demonstrated this, as you've said, in every stage of your career, that you get to a very high level, and in some cases the highest level of professional ability in one area, and then you say, oh look, I'm really interested in this, and it's not at the same level, what can I do to learn it? And you see it as this creative challenge, even when it's really hard, when it's really challenging to admit that there are things that you're not comfortable with. And I think a lot of students who are listening are at that point where they really want to be able to say, I want to have the courage to say this is a weak point, but it's very hard to admit when you've hit a level of ability that there are other things that aren't as strong. And I think this is a great example between you and Brooks of two people of different generations who had the courage to do that and look at all the doors that open for you.
Absolutely. Another person I think of is Lionel Lewicki.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
was established, I think it's from Benin. He was established as a recording artist. He came to Berkeley and basically started from scratch. I mean, I remember, again, not because he was at scratch, He came to Berkeley, and this was a place where he wanted to learn, all the aspects of music that he had been curious about. And he was not invested in just getting, a stamp of approval and just getting sent straight out to the world again. He was interested in immersing himself completely. It really does take a real strength of character, because a lot of times when somebody's very accomplished, there's a real temptation to argue with somebody who's showing you something, just saying, well, yeah, I never do that. I do this other thing, and this is why I do this other thing. Please don't say anything more about this thing. I just want to think about the way I do it. But this was not the attitude that he took. Instead of putting energy into finding, a way to shore up what he was doing already with some sort of justification, he put his energy into just immersing himself, and he worked with a lot of the great teachers at Berkeley, and he also worked with some great. I'm trying to think of. He continues to work with Massimo Biocati, who is the mastermind of iReal Pro, and I'm spacing out on the name of his drummer, who was there too. Anyway, he met both of them, and I'm sorry if you hear that. I'll think of it later. But he not only learned from the teachers that were here and made it so that he just dug in. If it was something he hadn't heard of before, he just immersed himself until he could breathe it himself. Then he combined it with his background himself as an accomplished African musician, a successful pop player, I think, in Africa, and he crossed it what he had, and he took what he was able to do here and did an audition for what was called the Thelonious Monk Institute at the time. Now it's the Herbie Hancock Institute. He flew out to California and auditioned, and in the auditioning team was Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter. And he performed for them, and right in front of him, they started to argue which one of them was going to get him for their band. Wayne said, "I want him in my band," and Herbie said, "No, I saw him first. He's going to be in my." I don't know what they really said, but it was that Lionel called me after he had done that audition, and I'd say, I think the audition went pretty well. That's a good one when you have Herbie and Wayne arguing about which one was going to get you. But the idea of he crossed with his background, what he was able to learn in a Berkeley education, and to go on. Again, I feel terrible. I can't think of this drummer's name, but he had opportunities to record with stars early on. Again, with Herbie Hancock and Wayne. I think Herbie is on one of his first albums, but Lionel and Kurt Rosenwinkel did a similar thing. He was not interested in just recording with the stars. He wanted to bring his band with him, and the band that he had was made up of Berkeley people. And to me, it's one of the greatest success stories that Berkeley's ever had. What Lionel Loueke did, also Esperanza did the same thing, and Esperanza Spalding, of course, and Brooks Robertson too. But boy, there's just such an amazing list of great musicians that I've been fortunate enough to encounter and work with, and try to figure out a way to help. And it's a gift when they contact me again and just say hello or tell me what's going on.
That's great. That's great. Cheryl, what's on your mind at this point in conversation?
Well, there's a couple things. I mean, I really love this last stream that we've hit on about players that come and they're accomplished in so many ways, and the courage that it takes to come and just start at nothing, at the basics, and that I think that's really important for students to hear, and for all of us to hear, because it always comes down to fundamental. It always comes down to those dang triads, right?
Yeah.
And the inversions. But also I wanted to touch on something you said earlier, just about teaching and learning, in that there isn't one way. It's not a cookie cutter approach. And I mean, oftentimes just even talking about improvisation concepts or harmony, oftentimes I describe it to students as a diamond, a big giant diamond. The center's always there, but you can look to that center from many different facets. You can from the top, from the bottom, the side, and you keep spinning it around, but it takes you to the center, but no one no one has to look at it the same way. And that process of, in terms of being a teacher, trying to I think you just said it, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but it was really great about that. It's finding all these different ways maybe to say the same thing. Well, this is a triad, but not everybody understands it in the same way. Or also often makes me think of, sometimes you'll be out somewhere and you run into somebody and they go, oh, you teach guitar, and maybe an adult beginner, and they'll tell you, oh, I'm doing this, is that right? Is that the right way to do it? And you go, if it's working for you and you're progressing, and then that's the right one. And I think that's also really important for students to remember, is that we all don't learn in the same way.
It's absolutely true. And I love the analogy of a diamond, because with a diamond, you don't have to explain to anybody that a diamond is beautiful. People, it can be a different diamond than you've ever seen before, and you just hold it up, and there it is, and everybody, regardless of background or where they come from or what, it just has a universal appeal. So how do you get that quality? What's in there? But yeah, also I get the idea too, Cheryl, the idea of like a different concept will have a different way of seeing it. It'll shine light in different ways. Yeah, I've spoken of a prism before, but I think actually a diamond is better because it's they're more multifaceted, literally, and more valuable.
Yeah, I like that. Ian, as we're talking about all of this, there's a question you generally ask, and I don't know if that question is on your mind or if something else is on your mind. That perked up Rick's attention. He was like, "Oh, what's the question?" It's
Yeah.
kind of like the big secret surprise question. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah. So I mean, it ties right in, and that's just turning that shape and having somebody see it in a new way. I mean, the question that we always ask in these coffee talks is, if you have a student, whether or not they're somebody who came in like Brooks Robertson or whoever, but like somebody who might be asking you a bunch of questions and wanting to think about something in one way, and you want to get them to think about it in a new way. Like, what's something that students should be asking that they might not even think to ask?
Well, yeah, that's a very interesting question. The thing that I think that all teachers can run into a problem when they're in a position that they are answering questions that the students don't have. Like if you have this kind of chord, this is the scale that you use on this kind of chord, and the student's thinking, I don't have that kind of chord. I'm not interested in what to do over that kind of chord because I don't like that chord. I don't like anyway. The idea of making it so that you're answering questions that a student will have. I mean, my trick to do that is to give them a song that's in the style that they really like, and they run into a place where they don't have. There's and having Vic Wooten visiting my classes last week, which was a fantastic thing. And a thing that he talked about is, when you're talking about music, if you have a question about anything in music, try to make it about words. Make it so that it's about words. Like you don't know how to pronounce this particular type of word, or you have to speak on a topic that you don't know anything about. How do you find anything about? So this idea of making it so that anything you're wondering about has to do with the spelling of a word, but it's a word that you want to have as a crucial part of your story. This kind of thing of really making it so that uh, if and I don't mean to be you shouldn't just be brimming over with attitude about it, but just saying, can you tell me, a place in music where I would need this? Where's a place where I would need to be able to do this? That would be a good question to ask. Also, like same. It's sort of beginning with the end in mind, that sort of thing. I mean, when students come to Berkeley for to find out about the place and whether they want to study here or not, or they're looking at a graduate program, as some people I'm talking to are as well. I said, get talk to the person who's in charge, and say, okay, when somebody gets the master's degree, what are some of the people? What are they able to do now that they didn't do? What are some success stories with people that got your master's degree? What are some success stories with the people that got the performance major degree at Berkeley, or pro music, or commercial writing and production? And sort of ask the question with that. So now to go back to sort of a musical example like that, it's just like, okay, uh, I'm very interested because I can see that you're passionate, Mr. Teacher or Ms. Teacher, that you're doing this. How would I be able to use this? Can you show me a piece of music where this happens? And to me, if you're interested in the music that it applies to, then you'll be interested in it. And the central job of any teacher is to capture the student's interest. If you have the student's interest, if you get into that kind of, I don't know, video game energy or Call of Duty energy or whatever, I don't play that game, but the something of Catan, Prisoners of Catan energy, I have sons, and I wouldn't be able to stop them playing that game if for love or money. And that's the way it is. If there's a concept that you can see why you want to know it, you're not going to stop until you get there. So maybe if it's something that you're having problems with musically, you just haven't found the application that would be of great interest to you. Maybe the configuration of drop 3 or drop 2 for voicings would make it so that you could write for strings. Or you could do an arrangement where you just take this set of voicings, or drop 2 and 4, or drop 2 and 3, where it works for this instrumentation. There are great reasons to know these configurations, and they go a lot further than because that's what's on the test. If that's the only justification that you can think of, go to your teacher, but find their office hour and just say, I'm working on this like crazy. Can you tell me why I would want to do this? What is an application? So that would be my long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think, Rick, in addition to the people who you've seen who came as professionals to Berkeley, you've also seen a tremendous number of people come in and maybe come in and look around and think like, was there a mistake made? Like, am I meant to be here? And then you're like, yes, of course you're meant to be here. And then you watch them just sort of build on all these fundamentals, maybe sometimes almost from scratch, never really from scratch, but in some ways they may feel, and then just take off in a tremendous way. You seem to be a believer in the power of knowledge of all the fundamentals and the creative applications of them. And you've seen that really work for people.
Yep, without question. That's a great way to put it. And to me, that's the real measure of the Berkeley education. The fact that if yes, indeed, you do these things step by step, and you make it so that you do it at a very high level, even the basics, you build on the basics, and you build on this, and you build on that. It'll take you to where you want to go. Again, the conservatory approach often is you have to be at a super high level to get in, and that's it. And it's them that got it, and them that don't, that sort of thing, and they may never. Berkeley is not like the the virtuosic, what do you call it? Somebody that is, like a 5-year-old piano player that can do,
Oh, like a prodigy.
yeah, the prodigy sort of thing. A lot of times, uh, a conservatory will attract someone who is of a prodigious talent, and they can even say prodigious. Anyway, prodigious talent, and
That's the thing.
yeah,
You if you can pronounce that at Berkeley, that's how they know you're not really
yeah.
ready. That's you're not ready.
I
Yeah.
can't even say it. Don't try to get me to spell it. There's no way. Anyway, this sort of thing about, well, you just do it. You just do it. Berkeley is not that place where you say you just do it. There are a lot of people that have worked very hard to find a lot of ways to help you to build up on stair steps, making it so that you're able to go from what feels like nothing. It's not really nothing. It's just at a basic level in that particular area, and we'll take you to the skill level that you want to be. I mean, it's truly, in the truest sense of the word, awesome to see the level of growth with the people that put the energy into the classes and make it so that they are learning what is in the classes and what's in the final exams and so on. Just to tag back on to what you were saying about the final exam requirements, or the proficiencies, as they're called. I mean, to me, when we restructured that with the help of a lot of great faculty, and that was in the 90s, so it was, soon after we got Mick Goodrick back on the faculty. He was on Berkeley faculty years and years ago. There were pictures of him with a skinny black tie and a white shirt. And he went over to New England Conservatory for a while, and we were so fortunate to get him back. Anyway, the early 90s, the final exam requirements, to me, it reminds me of the Brooklyn Bridge. When they built the Brooklyn Bridge down in New York, they didn't think that it was going to be, 2021 and people are still cruising right over it like it's nothing, with things that weren't even dreamed of at that time. To me, the final exam thing has weathered decades. It also has weathered the its capacity to be adapted for online, what we're doing, the Zoom and so on, making it so that it's just not a teacher that's hanging around saying, "Here, listen to me play on this one." It's a structure that the students can build upon, and each semester builds on the last, and it really takes you to a tremendous place at the end. So, yeah, to me, that is one of the greatest things about Berkeley education. It involves a structured approach to things that people maybe would prefer not to think of having a structure, because they don't want it to be so crowded up there at the top. They want to make it so that you mean if you can work, you can develop this? I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, that's the idea with this. If you are motivated, there are people that are motivated to take you from whatever square you are, whether that's square one or square 26 or square 352, to the highest square that you can get to in the time that you're here. And hopefully, this sort of approach that you experience when you're dealing with Berkeley will be something that you're able to adapt for throughout your professional life, so that you're always trying to build on what you're doing. And the best people that I get to work with at Berkeley have been doing that ever since I met them, and I'm sure they'll be doing it forever, as will the students I've encountered.
Yeah. There are many things I love about what you just said, and one is, when you think about the proficiencies, what's so interesting is, you're right, it's like a structured curriculum in a sense that it's final exam material for each of the 8 semesters, 4 for certain majors, 6 for other majors, 8 for the performance major. And yet it's a living structure.
Mhm.
And it made me think of this project that you and Cheryl and Larry and I are doing now, which is to create a book that people could work through as an introduction. And
Mhm.
right when you do that, you see, oh, great, we do the modes. Like, let's look at the modes of the major scale. There are many ways to approach that material.
That's true.
And so in the discussions that we had is like, okay, if you've never seen it before, what's a really straightforward introduction? And then the big disclaimer in the beginning is there are many ways to approach this material, and your teacher may take you through it in a different way, and you may find another teacher who says, look, if you apply it this way, if you look at it this way, it's also different, and it can help you do X, and this could help you do Z, and this could help you do Y, and and I think what's so amazing about it is that these fundamentals are never things you graduate from, even if you pass that level. And so when people come, it's this living curriculum that they can learn. Okay, I'm going to learn the basic approach to be ready to come to Berkeley. Then each semester, I'm going to explore a different approach and a different application. And then throughout your life, you may find yourself doing that again and again and again. Say, like, what worked for me when I worked on melodic minor, I think I need different things. And that's, I think, the one biggest thing that I've noticed in my years of being in a chair position is when people call who are alumni, they'll say, I got this gig.
Mm-hmm.
Could you please print out level 2 for me? Could you send me PDFs of those modes? Because I thought I had them, but I did it this way. And now I realize to create stuff for this gig, I need to use this material in a different way. And then they'll call a different teacher and say, can I take a lesson with you? Can I stop by and visit you? And so I think that's what's really interesting to me, is that there's room. If there's 55 guitar faculty, there's room for 55 approaches to our structure. And then that encourages each student to find their approach to these fundamentals that they need for the time in which they're playing.
Yeah, it's really true. And yeah, part of the collegial sort of approach to the thing is those students can change teachers a couple of times, and there is this sort of a handoff that goes from one semester to the next, rather than frequently in smaller programs. It is a huge deal when somebody changes teachers, and there's very little that is continued from one semester to the next. So this is sort of a line of continuity that sort of travels all the way through the curriculum. So it's a great thing, and I'm sure that the book that we're working on is going to help kind of reinforce that line of continuity.
I think so. The other day I was on the phone with one of our colleagues, and he said, I'm preparing videos for you. I'm preparing materials for students. I just want to remind you that I don't quite do it the way everybody else does. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, that's good. That's what we want, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's good for people to know that these fundamentals that we're talking about are things you're going to use in different ways throughout your life. It's a structure that isn't meant to be rigid. It's meant to be living. And in regard to that, Rick, like, as we're kind of coming to the final round of questions, you've touched on different things throughout this conversation that really show whether or not it's defined or in flux, like a philosophy that you have. And I think it touches on a question that people have, like, what makes someone successful? And that obviously there's no real answer to that question, but I think it's not always what you think. Like, someone, as you're saying, comes in like out of the box as a prodigy and then leaves as a prodigy. Like, you're touching on things that some people find intangible, but that are really tangible, like your ability to work with others, your ability to keep learning, your ability to have some courage and humility when it comes to your own skill set. Mm-hmm. Are there other things that jump out to you? Like, when you see someone, you're like, wow, you know what? That person's going really far. It's not just because they're the top virtuoso that walked into your studio. There are other things. What are a few of those other things maybe that jump to mind for you?
Well, what I think of right away is just sort of a passion for what they're doing, and a working relationship with what they're working on. If you think about, nobody I'm talking to here, but I mean, if there are people that you have trouble working with, that doesn't mean that you quit the job, and that's the way it is with musical things that you're working on, or, professional skills, I guess, in any field. So you got to have a healthy working relationship. It doesn't, just like someone maybe you don't particularly care for on your when you're walking to work. Let's say that just somebody you know that hasn't done what you wanted them to do always. You say good morning. You don't say I'm not talking to you. I'll never talk to you. And that's the way you've got to be with stuff that you don't know how to do yet. You don't have to love it that you're doing it. You just sort of have a working relationship, and you can't hate it. That's not going to work either. You just you find out what you're passionate about, break it down into steps for yourself to make it so that you can learn those things, and then move forward with it. Find out what inspires you. Really, just sort of trick yourself into being attracted into areas that will take you closer to what you want to do. What do you? Let's thing that I frequently say to students is, okay, it's 5 years from now. I've seen you in a club in your hometown, or I've seen you at a concert in your hometown, and I said, that was a great set. That was amazing what you just played. Okay, what was it that you played? What was in that concert? What did you play? What's the instrumentation? Sort of cast your mind into what would it is it you singing with yourself playing? Are you self accompanying like a singer songwriter? Is it an instrumental group where it's a trio? Is it a big band that you've done arrangements for? What sort of thing? So again, this idea of kind of like the Stephen Covey thing, beginning with the end in mind. Think about where you want to go. Don't just think about what has just washed up on your doorstep on a given day. Think about where you want to go. What's going to help you to get closer to what you want to do? Okay, well, maybe that's too big to do today. What would be a thing that you could do that would bring you closer to that thing that would bring you closer? And you just sort of build on that sort of thing. And this is, again, whenever you start to list people, you're leaving off people that you should. But well, I think about Larry Bayonne working on cello. That's not because it's not a government ordered activity, or Jim Kelly working continually on great steel string acoustic things that he's doing, as well as the electric stuff. Just there are people that are similarly inspired that we work with every day, and we're very fortunate. I won't say we're lucky. I will say that we're fortunate because it's we've all worked to be where we are, and that's not just luck. That's not just like something falling out of a tree into your hand sort of thing. It's a continual it's a continually refreshing environment of inspiration, basically, I would say. And as long as you're on that chain, again, like with this video stuff, like this stuff, I'm meeting with I'm working with Victor Wooten and Steve Bailey. They're both virtuosic musicians, and they are trying to do seminars where they're telecasting around the world, and they're working with this. I'm going to learn more about that. It's a way to make it so that I can reach through this computer and make it so that people will be similarly inspired to the stuff that I want to help them to learn.
That's fantastic. I had a teacher who used to say, luck favors the prepared. That sounds a lot like what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to say it too.
Yeah. Hey, Cheryl, what's on your mind as we come to the close of our coffee?
Yeah, well, Rick, thanks for stopping by and digging into your philosophies about education, about learning, and applying it, and also that last bit that you're talking about in terms of looking at the end and game and what your goals are. I remember, I think when I was at Berkeley student, and I saw Emily Remler one time talking, and she said, yeah, when she was a Berkeley student, her whole goal was she just wanted to play standards in a club all night. And I said, because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and when I heard that, I said, oh yeah, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So that was my first goal out the gate. So I think that is important to take that time to, wherever you have to do that in a meditation or, talking with your friends or your therapist or whatever that is, to find that place that you want to go, and then work towards that. That's really great
Absolutely
advice.
true. And that's, yeah, that's amazing. The Emily Remler story is that's amazing too. Yeah, you have to, if you're climbing up a ladder, you want to, it really helps to know that it's up on the right wall. You get to the top of it, what are you going to do with it? You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's sort of like beginning with the end in mind. What's going to do that? And then figuring out which wall you want to go after. And it's really true, Cheryl. You talk to kindred spirits. You talk to your peers and friends. The other, you see, this is one of the things about Berkeley. Again, I know we're closing up, but um, when students come to Berkeley, it's very unusual compared to most colleges. You're not admitted to a major necessarily, and the reason I defend that is because when students get here, they're not really sure of what of the 12 or 14 majors is really going to be best for them. But what becomes clear is they start to see people, they see other students and teachers doing with something that really resonates with them, and that this is a wall that they want to put their ladder up against and climb up to the top of, and go over to the other side. You know, it's a great thing about this place, and we're very fortunate to be here.
Mm. Ian, what's on your mind at the end here?
Yeah, I mean, I also, like Cheryl, really loved that concept of beginning with the end in mind. And I think to tie it into some of the things you were talking about earlier about, like, the proficiency material, the final exam material, and asking, like, why would I need to use it, or like what kind of music would require me to know this sort of thing. And I think that actually, when you're talking about beginning with the end in mind, I think that opens up a whole different sort of dimension of, like, how can I use this other material creatively with that in mind, right?
Yep.
Like, how with this new information and these like new musical concepts can I like creatively build that end in mind in like a new way that you might not have thought about? So yeah.
Yep, and it's a question that you had, but you didn't know you had it yet. I mean, it's something that, it was a song that you were trying to play a couple weeks ago, and you had no idea what you were doing, and you hope nobody hears the recording of it. um, but now, if you get the tools that'll make it so that you can get into that 5/7 of 6, or the secondary dominant to whatever chord it is, that yeah, it sounds smooth and easy when you do it. And there's, there's just a little information that's getting in your way. You just don't know the right word for it yet. You don't know how to, put together that kind of story, and you don't know quite the formula. But the music that you want, it's got an answer that will help you get closer to it, helping you to have the vocabulary you need to express yourself, and with your collaborators to help them express themselves better too.
Mm. As our final thought here, it occurs to me that we have three members of the assistant chair of guitar at Berklee Club here.
Yeah, sorry, Ian.
Sorry. Well, Ian, maybe it's good that we have this final thought here. Yeah, we've all played a role in somehow affecting Ian's life. So
Mhm.
sorry, Ian, or congratulations, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But one thing that was super helpful for me and has been is being able to work with you, Rick, and with Larry, who is another member of both the assistant chair and the guitar chair club at Berkeley. Not a huge club, by the way, everyone listening. And Rick would give me advice and sometimes call it things Rick tells Kim. Um, and it was really helpful. And Cheryl, because you're in your second year now and trying to figure out all the moving parts and how to keep creative and artistic in the midst of them. And as like a quick installment of that tradition, Rick, is there something that comes to mind for you as advice to me and Cheryl from your perspective as we're kind of navigating, hopefully, the return back to campus in a bigger way and the next steps as we're all working together?
Yeah, well, you're the right people to do whatever the next chapter is to get us back into the next stage. I'd say you're in the vantage point. I mean, being the chair or assistant chair of the department is a very it's a tough place to be because you have so many constituencies. You have to represent the administration to the faculty. You have to represent the faculty to the administration. You have to represent the students that are going through the program